In January that the disappearance of Richie James grabbed the headlines. Richie was the guitarist with the rock band the Manic Street Preachers. The night before the band were due to fly to America for a tour, Richie disappeared.
Tony Sharpless case file hasn't seen activity in several years. The missing nurse from West Brandywine Township, Chester County, was last seen leaving a party in Lower Merion Township the night of August 22, 2009.
How does someone famous just disappear into thin air? No goodbye, no trail, just gone. One would assume that fame would offer a safety net of cameras, fans, and constant attention. But as the story goes on, it becomes clear that nobody is immune to mystery, even if they are famous.
This guy's an English pound from Portobello Market. And this is my shirt.
Clothes are really too important, you know.
This video explores three well-known people who vanished into thin air. Their stories blend myth and truth, proving that even the most famous people can become ghosts. Case 1. Richie Edwards, Manic Street Preachers guitarist. Richie Edwards was more than just the Manic Street Preachers guitarist. He was the driving force behind the group's most poetic and dark moments. Known for his haunting lyrics and fascinating presence, Richie wasn't like most rock stars. He had no desire for attention. Rather, his music brimmed with emotion, philosophy, and pain. His admirers saw him as a wounded genius who lived his own inner turmoil, rather than only singing about it. In the early 1990s, the Manic Street Preachers became increasingly popular, and Richie's words struck a nerve with a generation that felt disillusioned. But behind the scenes, Richie battled mental health issues. He was open about his struggles with self-harm, depression, and the weight he carried. He never hid his pain from the world, but he also never fully explained it. That vulnerability made people connect with him even more. Then came the morning of February 1st, 1995. After leaving the London Embassy Hotel, Richie simply disappeared. That day, he was supposed to take a plane to the United States for a promotional tour. The band had been preparing and everything was in place, but Richie never arrived. His car was discovered abandoned a few days later, close to the Severn Bridge, a location that is tragically known for suicides. It felt like a final message, a silent goodbye. But the truth, what happened next, is a mystery. Many believed Richie took his own life. The depressing lyrics, the mental health issues, and the Severn Bridge all seemed to be pointing in the same direction. It was as though he had written the climax for himself. But then came the sightings. Fans reported seeing him in far-off places, such as the Canary Islands and India. A man fitting his description was seen reading alone, walking through busy markets, always just out of reach. Would it have been possible for him to start again somewhere, away from the noise and pressures of fame? Theories spiraled throughout time. Some others thought Richie deliberately planned his disappearance because he wanted to get away and be anonymous. Others couldn't get rid of the thought that he had passed away that day, leaving just lyrics and unanswered questions. The fact that Richie was always a mystery, even to those closest to him, made things even harder. His disappearance seemed to reflect his elusive, lyrical, and deeply tragic personality. 13 years after his disappearance, Richie Edwards was formally declared dead in 2008. But there was no closure even after the statement. If anything, it deepened the legend. Fans still talk about him in the present tense. His songs are still played with reverence, and his words are repeated in forums. It seems as though Richie was never truly gone. He transformed into a timeless icon that transcended reality. His legacy lingers not just in the music, but in the ache of his absence. Richie became a symbol of the vulnerability behind fame, the type of guy whose pain served as both his muse and his tragic end. In the world of rock, He will always be young, unreachable, and a ghost. Those who felt understood by Richie Edwards are still troubled by his story, regardless of whether he actually disappeared or just went away. Perhaps the finest way to be remembered is to be remembered as someone who slipped just out of sight, rather than as someone who is no longer there. Case 2. Tony Sharpless, Pennsylvania nurse, mother, disappeared in 2009. Tony Sharpless wasn't someone you'd expect to disappear without a trace. She was a nurse, a single mother from Pennsylvania, a person who had responsibilities, people who loved her, and a daughter who depended on her. Although Tony's life had not always been easy, she had recently been having trouble managing her meds and mental health. She was trying to go on and lead a normal life despite the burden she bore. But she disappeared one quiet, strange night in 2009, and no one has ever been able to figure out how or why. It all began with what seemed to be a typical night out. Toni and her friend Crystal Johns headed out to a party. They were in the Philadelphia area, enjoying themselves, but things took a turn in the early morning hours. At about 4 in the morning, something changed. According to reports, Toni got upset. About what? Nobody knows for sure, and decided to go. She got in her black Pontiac Grand Prix and headed out into the darkness. That was the last confirmed sighting of her. Nothing after that. Her phone went dead. Her bank account stayed untouched. No digital record. No physical proof. She simply disappeared. Although people go missing every day, this case has always felt different. With all the surveillance cameras, data tracking, and police systems in today's world, it would seem almost impossible for a woman and her car to disappear completely. No license plate hits, no highway camera footage, and no convincing explanation were found. Just silence. As was to be expected, the theories began to surface, each one more terrifying than the last. The idea that Toni was the victim of foul play is among the most prevalent ones. Some investigators believe that she might have been targeted. Maybe she ran into someone dangerous on the road or at a gas station. Another possibility goes even darker. What if she had been pulled over by someone pretending to be a police officer? Or worse, by an officer who had something to hide? In the wake of the case, many have been troubled by the suspicion that there may have been a cover-up. The lack of evidence doesn't rule it out. It actually makes it more disturbing. The possibility of sex trafficking is another theory that makes people shiver. The complete erasing of her digital and physical trace, combined with no signs of the car or body, has led some to assume she may have been taken, kidnapped, and held somewhere, invisible to the world. This theory gained greater popularity when a private investigator received an anonymous letter claiming Toni was alive, being held against her will. But the message provided no evidence or information that could identify her, just more mystery. One question arises across it all. Why did she leave that night so suddenly? Could it have been a medication-induced mood swing? Was she feeling overwhelmed, upset, or triggered by something in that moment? Her friend Crystal claims that she has no idea where Toni went after she drove away and has never been charged with anything. And yet, questions linger. The utter emptiness left behind is what makes this story even harder to swallow. Toni's daughter has grown up without her. Her family is still searching, wondering, and holding out hope. They live in that unending loop of unresolved grief. No closure, no answers, no final goodbye. Not knowing what happened to someone you love is an unusual kind of pain. There is a family who wakes up every day with the hope that one day, just one day, they will discover the truth. Case 3. Lars Mittank, German tourist vanished in Bulgaria, 2014. Just a typical 28-year-old German man, Lars Mittank, was enjoying a pleasant vacation in Bulgaria with his friends. He had no history of mental illness, and there were no signs of anything worrying beneath the surface. All he wanted was to have fun, spend time with his friends, and enjoy the sun. But by the time the trip was over, everything had changed. What began as a typical holiday became one of the most mysterious and haunting disappearances in modern history. It all began with a fight. Lars got into a fight with some men, supposedly over a football rivalry, and he ended up with a damaged eardrum. Lars had to stay behind for medical reasons, but his friends took the scheduled flight home. The doctor prescribed him an antibiotic and told him he needed to rest before flying. Things about the situation didn't feel normal again after that. Lars started acting differently. He warned his mother not to trust anyone in strange texts. He whispered to her over the phone that he was being followed. It made no sense. Why would someone be following him? Was there something more serious, or was it just anxiety? Though unable to do much but listen from a distance in Germany, his mother was terrified. There was obviously a serious issue, but nobody knew what it was. Then came the most bizarre part of the story, Lars's final moments caught on camera. He arrived at Varna Airport on July 8, 2014, supposedly ready to take a flight home, but something set him off while he was sitting in the medical office at the airport. Suddenly he got up, dropped everything he had, including his passport, wallet, phone, and luggage, and ran away. It was all caught on camera. Lars running out of the terminal, over the parking lot, up a towering fence, and into the thick forest beyond the airport. That was the last time he was seen. Since then, no one has seen or heard from him. The video is disturbing to watch. Lars seemed to be running for his life in fear. It is the question that has confused everyone who has tried to figure out this situation. Some specialists believe he might have experienced a psychotic episode, which might have been brought on by a brain injury, suffered during the fight, or a negative reaction to the antibiotics he was taking. According to the theory, he ran in a panic because he grew paranoid and thought that someone was after him. Others bring up the area's shady image for crimes like organ harvesting and human trafficking. But all that exists is speculation and a creepy silence that has persisted for years without any concrete evidence. But he somehow turned into a ghost. His story creates a sense of discomfort that persists long after the screen has gone dark. Because if someone like Lars can disappear just like that, so suddenly, so completely, what does that say about the rest of us? How do people disappear without a trace in a society where cameras and constant connectivity are widespread? Maybe some don't want to be found, or perhaps we're simply not paying enough attention. These stories make us uncomfortable and make us wonder how much we actually know about disappearance and the human psyche. That was all for today. Do not forget to like and subscribe to the Suspense Room to unlock more stories.